All right, guys, we've brought another guest to the channel. We've already brought one on to talk about Croatia, and we've brought another guest on. We brought on a buddy of mine from Belgium, Jasper. Jasper, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to have you on. Really excited to hear some of your answers to some of these questions because it was very interesting seeing Canada basically kind of come out of nowhere. We're in the World Cup. We're taking on some of the big dogs around. So it's very interesting to me to see how basically Canada is perceived. So we're just going to jump right into it, Jasper. The very first question I want to ask you is, how is Canada perceived in Belgium, and what were your thoughts when you drew us in the draw?
Well, me personally, the first thing I thought about you because you're like the only Canadian I know. And I know my team, I know Belgium, and I know that we would probably misjudge you or misjudge Canada as a football team in the game. And that would mean that we would probably think, oh, easy game, easy walkover, because I think a lot of the players from Belgium think they're in the best team in the world, as in we're number one in the ranking. Um, it kind of like the same we had with Japan in 2018, where we also thought, oh, easy game, Japan. But then we got 2-0 in the first half, I think, and that was very dangerous. So I think that's kind of how Canada is perceived. But I thought about you, about Jonathan David, mainly because obviously he played in Belgium. I think a lot of people here would know him mainly from the Canadian team, and also maybe Ugbo, because he played for Genk just a season, I think. He didn't have as much of an impact as Jonathan David did, but still the people know him. And then obviously there's Davies, who is probably the biggest name on your team sheet if you look at world football. And I think those players kind of illustrate what Canada is here in Belgium. So we don't know much other players, I think, just the players that have a link with our own country. I asked around my friend group a little bit what they thought of Canada, just to see what the general thought is. And they kind of had the same idea, like, yeah, I don't think we should underestimate them, because obviously you did qualify and you ended above Mexico, didn't you? So, I mean, that definitely means something. That means that you're a good team. And I'm really excited to see how you're going to play, because I've never watched the game from Canada, but I'm excited to see how you're going to play against us, but also against the other teams in our group. And I hope it's going to be a good game. But I'm a little bit scared for, like I said, the pace that some of your players have, like David and Davies. They're very fast, and our defense is very old and slow. So I'm excited to see that matchup, how we're going to handle that. But it should be a great game, I think.
Yeah, and it's been very interesting because, I mean, Canada really came out of absolutely nowhere, and it wouldn't be, I guess, weird for me to think that different countries around the world would assume, okay, yes, they got maybe lucky, they just got the right batch of players at the same time to get there. But there's been a lot of really good feedback I've got in terms of don't underestimate this team, and it's interesting to hear that without you even saying you've watched a game. It's just some of those household names in Canadian football have obviously hit those kind of levels where you're like, okay, well, we got to be careful because they have some really good ones. It was an interesting point you made about David and Ugbo playing in Belgium, so there's a little familiarity there. But basically, the answer that we've been getting back from everyone I've talked to about Canada going to the World Cup is that this team can be dangerous. Now, when the draw happened and you saw Morocco, because I don't give Morocco enough credit on this channel, just because I haven't found someone to talk to them about yet, and I'd like to think that if Canada goes through, it's because they're going to beat Morocco. Doesn't mean that they are. But when you saw the group and the draw was done, and you got Croatia, who you're probably pretty familiar with, then you got Canada, who you don't really know much about. What about Morocco? Did you have any insight on Morocco, or are they a little bit similar to Canada in that perspective?
Well, I think Morocco is a very interesting one for Belgium, because Belgium is a country with a lot of people from different nationalities living in it, and there's a lot of Moroccan people in our country, like more than there are Canadian people in our country, that's for sure. Like, for example, the place where I live, in our street, there's quite a lot of Moroccan families that I know. I've often talked to them. And I saw on Instagram as well that they like posted on their story that they were going to be cheering for Morocco to beat Belgium. And I think if that would happen, you would really see it in like the streets of Belgium, because there are, like I said, a lot of Moroccan people. Now, football wise, I do not know a lot of their players. I'm sure there are some quite big names in like the top 5 leagues, but I've never seen them play either. I don't know if Belgium ever played against them before. But yeah, I I do see them as the smallest team in our group. Um, but that's probably just because I know more players from the other countries. So I don't know how they're gonna match up against like Croatia and Belgium and Canada. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting group. Morocco is, again, there have been one I've looked over, which I'm hoping I can find someone from Morocco or obviously follows the national team to bring on so they can calm me down. Because the only reason I'm talking about them maybe not finishing as well as Canada is because I'm trying to talk about the perspective of Canada going through. And the other two nations of the group is Croatia and Belgium. But Morocco is definitely a solid team. I mean, I know you're familiar with Hakimi. They have some dangerous players on that team. Hakim Ziyech as well. If he comes back, he's a big question mark, but he was one of their starter players. It'll be very curious. I really don't know where Canada could finish. It wouldn't surprise me if Canada finished fourth. It wouldn't surprise me if we found a way to sneak through. And part of that reason, or part of the reason some of the Canadians are kind of hopeful that they can sneak into that second place, is it's kind of similar, in my opinion, from Croatia and Belgium. And you kind of hear this a little bit, and you kind of already touched on it, but mostly with them being slow as opposed to them being old. Unless you said old, I actually don't remember. They're a little bit of
I said both. Yeah.
You said both, okay? Because we talked about Croatia kind of aging out a little bit. I mean, they still have some ballers. Luka Modric is 36 and he's still doing it. But Belgium's an interesting one because it kind of looked like they hit their golden generation. They had a couple Euros where they were looking to compete. They obviously finished third in the last World Cup, and it seems like that back line is kind of fallen apart just because they've obviously aged out a little bit. So I want to get your kind of opinion on that. And I guess the first question, because I feel like I know it, would you say that this current squad is better than the 2018 squad? And then talk to me a little bit about your back line, because that's where I feel like a lot of Canadians are looking at it. Like you talked about some potential counterattacks, looking at the speed of Davies, Atakubi, Larea, and looking at that back three and being like, this team is vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, I did some research on our center backs that we have available. But first, I'd like to say, like, the 2018 team, I think, was definitely better than what we have now. A lot more players were actually really good individually at that point. And I think this year, we've got a couple, like Courtois, for example, he's in the best form of his life. And yeah, that's about it. Some of our players are really good, but I think in 2018, they were just better. As well, obviously, it's 4 years ago, so our defenders were younger. Thinking about Vertonghen and Alderweireld, who still played for Tottenham at that time, I think. And right now, I mean, Alderweireld, he plays in Qatar, which is, I don't follow that league. And Vertonghen, he plays in Portugal for Benfica. And I looked up his stats this season. He's actually had a really good season. Like, most of the ratings from the games were like 7+. So I'm excited about that. I haven't watched him play a lot, but I think Vertonghen really is someone we should bring with us again. I think he would definitely be in my starting back three, because obviously Belgium plays with the back three most of the time. Alderweireld, I don't know. I looked at his stats too, and they were decent, but I don't know how competitive the league there is. I don't know if he plays in the best team or not. I'd bring him because he's obviously a veteran for us, and I think he just that the experience is really important. On the other hand, I do think that they kind of lost their willpower a little bit, because obviously they've tried so many times to win something with the national team, and it's just not happening. But we do now, in comparison to 2018, we have a lot more younger center backs that are a little bit more experienced now. For example, in the Bundesliga, you have Bornau, who plays for Wolfsburg. He's had a great season, but he's injured now, I think. Hopefully, he'll be back by then, because I would definitely take him. I think from our young center backs, he's the most exciting one. There's also Boyata for Berlin, he plays, I think. He hasn't had that great of a season, but I don't know if you have to take players like that with you. It's just, we'll have to see at that time who is good, who isn't, because it's still quite far away, obviously. There's also Denayer, who plays for Lyon, who also hasn't had that great of a season, but we'll see. I don't know if he's going to stay at Lyon. I don't know what his plans are. But then there's also some more like really young guys that you may not be too familiar with. For example, Van Heusden. I don't know if you've heard of him. He plays in Italy now. I think he's loaned out to Genoa from Inter. Who is exciting? He's an exciting prospect, definitely, and he's had a good season. But also, he is injured now. I think he's been injured for quite a while now. So that is something that happens quite a lot with Belgian players, that they just get injured. I think that's one of our biggest threats to our team. So those are some guys that I would definitely look at to take with you. Like I said, like Alderweireld and Vertonghen, I would definitely take to the World Cup as the experienced players, but then I'd look at which of the young prospects are the most exciting and give them some chances too. Because I feel like Martinez, our manager, he kind of fails to do that, to give the young players some playing time, which is sad. But I mean, it's his choice. He is the manager. He can choose that.
Yeah, I always felt like Martinez was kind of like a win now type mentality, and sometimes when you're like down the national team, you don't really, not necessarily, because he's been there for a little bit, but he doesn't necessarily look way to the future. He wants to win now. This was Belgium's golden generation, and you guys have had your chances, but I don't know. I agree with you. Looking back at that 2018 team, I would be a lot more terrified to take on you guys then than I am now.
Yeah, and I think like we've kind of lost our people used to think Belgium are a great team, and I think we've kind of lost that. Which, I mean, I agree. We kind of are a bit worse now. If you look at like friendlies, obviously it's against worse teams, but we never really play very excitingly. Like, it doesn't excite me anymore. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that just the chemistry isn't there. And I think in 2018, we definitely did have that chemistry. We had a really good selection of players that really liked to play with each other. And when we beat Brazil, I think that was a very good example of that, because Brazil is a very good team. They were one of the favorites that year, and we beat them, mainly thanks to Courtois, because he made some amazing saves. But then we lost to France, yes, which really sucked. And I think after that, the morale just kind of went downhill, and we never really got up there again. And I've been saying this for a couple of months now. I just want to see what a new coach would do with that team, because I think Martinez is just, I don't think he's going to do it. He didn't do it in 2020 or 2021. So I don't think he'd be able to change much now.
Now, from me, and that's interesting to hear you talk about Martinez like that, because it's hard to think. I mean, this was Belgium's golden generation. I think there was a couple opportunities that they could have done something really, really special. And I don't want to take anything away from their runs, because I mean, they did finish third in the last World Cup. That's an extraordinary task. But you guys wanted to see it go over the line, and it was just that much closer. But I feel like one of the reasons when I look at this Belgium team now and think that maybe they're missing that X factor, and it was Eden Hazard. Because growing up, he was probably my favorite player to watch. I just loved everything about him. He was such a polarizing figure on the side. He would take those kind of boring, gritty matches, and he would just throw the match on his shoulders, and he would do something special. He was an extraordinary talent. And I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting how good he really was now that he made that move to Madrid, and he's just kind of completely fallen apart. And when I look at this Belgium side now, yes, you had like your 3-4-3. It was basically set up, but you knew you had one star player. You had to circle Eden Hazard. You also had KDB in there. So now I feel like he's not there. Yes, you have Thorgan Hazard. Yes, you have Carrasco, but I don't know if you can replicate what Eden Hazard brought to this side. And I just want to get your opinions on kind of his fall off, and who you think is going to be potentially that X factor, that creativity, who could potentially be down the left-hand side, the right-hand side. And if you're looking for a moment of magic, who do you think is going to come up big?
Right. I first of all, I want to say it's very sad to see what happened to Eden Hazard, because obviously everyone loved him. He was like a national hero. And like, yeah, since he's moved to Madrid, it's just gone downhill. And I think part of the new Hazard, who it's going to be, it will be decided this summer, just by seeing, first of all, where Hazard himself will go, because I don't think he's going to stay at Madrid. I read that he wants to stay at Madrid, but I don't see why he would want that, because I don't think he's going to be able to revive his career there. If he still wants to revive his career, I think he should go, I don't know, just somewhere else. I wouldn't know where, but somewhere else. And I think what you're saying is right. Like, we do miss that creativity. I definitely wouldn't underestimate KDB though. Like, he can definitely do it on his own, just from the midfield. The passes he can play, it's like insane. personally, we don't deserve him. I think if he was in any other national team, he would have already won something there. But with Belgium, it's just not happening. Like from the wings, like first of all, the 3-4-3. I don't know if that's the formation we should keep playing with. And it kind of is the same thing as with Martinez. He keeps trying. He always uses the 3-4-3. It works kind of, but the matches we've played most recently, just it's really boring to watch. Like it's just we score some goals, but they're very straightforward. Most of the time, they're just individual brilliance, just a couple of seconds of brilliance, and it's a goal. There's not really that team play, which kind of is annoying. And of course, with Hazard, he could also do it individually, but I feel like he kind of brought up the entire mentality of the team, and he boosted the chemistry. He was a very important player for us, and I don't think he'll do that at the World Cup this year. So who else might do that? I don't think his brother would do that either. I think Torgan, he'll probably go to Madrid, I think, Atletico Madrid, or somewhere else. I don't think he's going to stay at Dortmund, which is sad because he was one of my favorite players, but he has kind of fallen off lately, so I can't really blame Dortmund for selling him. I think we have a couple of young players that could maybe take over. I think Salamakers is a really exciting one. Every time he plays for the national team, he plays really well, and I think a lot of people don't see that, which is sad, but he's really good for us. Obviously, a lot of people are saying Doku, but I personally I think I've seen Doku play like 2 good matches in my entire life. So I didn't watch him when he was at Anderlecht, and I don't watch him now because he's often injured. But for Belgium, I mean, he's good, but he's still very young, and I feel like he should really get some more playing time at the team that he's in and develop a bit better before he can take over that role of Hazard. So I would say probably Salamakers to take over that role. And I think I'd be like the only person to say that. But I just wouldn't see who else could do that. Maybe the Ketelaere. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, he's on Club Rouge, right?
Yeah, but
what about Carrasco? Or does he think he's gonna be playing a wing back role?
I think Carrasco has had a really good season, and he also always gives his full energy for Belgium, which is something that's rare these days in our national team. So Carrasco could definitely do it, I think. I don't know if he has like those same moments of individual brilliance as Hazard did, like to go one-on-one with a player and just dribble like crazy. I don't think he can do that, but he's definitely one of our best options on the left side. So he should definitely be playing an important role in our starting 11, in my opinion. I would definitely put him in. On the left side, because Salamakers also is more of a right-sided player. I don't know really who else could do that. There are a couple of young players, but they're like still really young. Like you've got Oyen at Genk, who I've seen play live in the stadium a couple of times, and he impresses me every time. I think his name will become a bit more well-known in the next couple of years. But I don't think Martinez will call him up yet, because like I said, I think he's 18 or 19. And that's just not really the way Martinez does things. I don't really know who else we could play there. Like, probably Carrasco, and then at left mid, I'd play Torgan Hazard. But
well, I did give you a task, so just to give our Canadians a little bit of an idea, I guess, of how Belgium may line up, at least from your perspective. I tasked you, if we were gonna play Belgium tomorrow, what do you think Belgium's best starting 11 would look like, and how would you line them up?
Right, so I made a lineup on my phone. So obviously,
right.
I put Courtois in goal because he is just, in my opinion, our best player at the moment. Like he in the Champions League, for example, he just plays amazing games every time. Our back three, I would go with Vertonghen and Alderweireld still in there, despite their age. I just think the experience is really important. Of course, you have the downfall of the pace. Like they're not the fastest players anymore. And that would be the main threat against Belgium. So I think if you can use your pace, like with Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies, that you could really have a big chance against us, because we don't really have like a really pacey center back at our disposal. But our third center back, I would go with Bornau from Wolfsburg, just because he's had just such a great season compared to all our other options. And then In the midfield, I'd put 4 players. So Torgan Hazard on the left side, because despite his recent performances, I think he's still an important player who you can trust in the national team. Like, I mean, he scored that great goal against Portugal to get us through to the next round in 2021. So I think he's quite important for us. Also, just the Hazard name, to have that on the field, it's still quite important for Belgium, I think. And as soon as you would start playing without that name, either one of the brothers, I think you would be kind of missing something. Then midfield, I would definitely put KDB, because like I said, he's also just great form. He's always in great form. He is our best outfield player, definitely. This season, but also previous seasons, he is really important, and we're really lucky to have him. And then next to him, I'd play Tielemans, who has also had a great season and will probably get a big summer move to probably Arsenal, maybe somewhere else. And I'm really excited to see how he would play there and develop even more, because I think he could really become a really good player for us. On the right side, I'd go with Meunier, if he's back from injury. I mean, right now you couldn't play him because he's injured, obviously. So if you'd say right now, I'd probably put Castagne there, because he's like the backup to Meunier. Excuse me. And then our front three, I would put Carrasco, like you said. He is just our best option at the moment, but I don't know if he'll still be our best option when the World Cup comes around, because it's just very unpredictable what's going to happen with Eden Hazard or with our other youngsters, how they're going to develop. And then up front, I'd obviously put Lukaku. Despite his maybe a little bit bad spell at Chelsea, I think it's literally just the fact that he plays for Chelsea is what it got into his head, and that's why he can't perform. So hopefully he'll get out of Chelsea again in the summer and become the great striker we all know. And then on the right wing, I'd put Salamakers, because I love to watch him play for Belgium.
Hey, he's close to bringing AC Milan to a title, so he's
Exactly.
a big part of that AC Milan side. And yeah, Lukaku's an interesting one. I mean, I just watched the Chelsea game over the weekend, and he scored a couple goals and gave you an idea of what the type of striker he can be. But no matter how his club form really has been, I've always noticed he's one that you can expect to perform for Belgium.
For Belgium, always.
Yeah, he's just got such a good goal scoring record, and we have a bit of a similar player to him on Canada, not in terms of quality, but in terms of whether he's in good form, bad form. When he plays for Canada, he's usually lights out. So that's about the starting 11 I was kind of predicting. I was curious about your back three to see if you're going to go with some of the old guards, or you're going to bring in some new blood, and you're a little bit of a mixture. But I'll put together a very, very quick lineup in case we have any Belgian supporters watching and they're curious to see how Canada potentially would line up. I'm curious just about the system. I'm just going to put it with the 4-4-2, and they can kind of adapt that way. But I got Milan Borjan in net, Richie Larea at right back, Vitoria and Kamal Miller. Even though Vitoria is not playing right now, makes me a little bit nervous, but maybe he'll get a transfer because his side looks like they're going to get relegated. On left back, I got Samuel Adekubi, who's been on excellent form this season. Then my 4 midfielders, we got another Canadian who's playing in Belgium, Tejan Buchanan, who some Club Brugge fans will probably get to know. He's had a pretty solid season so far, and he's been mostly playing as a wing back, but in my opinion, he's definitely a little bit more impressive going forward. So I have him on the right-hand side, and again, just having those basically overlapping players, having Larea, Buchanan, I think could be dangerous going against the back three, just given the speed of them. At the left mid, I have Davies, and then you have Davies and Adekubi going down the other side. So those are where I'm looking at this matchup, being like, okay, that's where Canada can be a little bit dangerous. I got a player like Stefan Eustáquio through the middle with probably Atiba Hutchinson, depending on how he's feeling, if not Mark Anthony Kaye, because Atiba is 39, he's getting up there. And then, of course, Jonathan David and Kyle Larin up front. Kyle Larin's had a pretty poor season after coming off a really, really good season. But no matter what, when he plays for Canada, he's been lights out. He's their all-time leading goal scorer. And that's kind of the squad I would put together to take on the Belgium side. And, I mean, Belgium does still scare me, and I don't think that side shouldn't scare any Canadians, but you never know. And that's where we're going to go to our final question of the day, Jasper, and it's just getting your predictions. Who's going to make it through this group? You don't have, if you don't think Canada is, do not feel like you have to put them second. Give me your honest opinion, 1 to 4. How do you think this group is going to play out?
Well, the thing is, it's very hard to predict, because obviously the World Cup is going to be played in the winter, which I'm myself very bummed about, because I love the summer feeling and then just going to watch a World Cup game. So it's still far away, and like with injuries and transfers, a lot can still change. I do expect Belgium to win it, but the things you never know with these guys. Like, it's very dangerous. It's you can, in the first 10 minutes of the game, you'll already see if they want to win or not, which is sad because you'd expect them to always want to win, but that's not the case. But I do expect them to go top of the group, hopefully. I think the bottom team will be Morocco, just because I don't think they have the overall quality to beat the other teams. They've got a couple of great players, but yeah, I just don't think they can beat everyone and go second. And then there's Croatia and Canada. Obviously, it's hard to tell. Croatia, like you said, has an aging side, but a couple of like world-class players, obviously, and they did go really far in 2018. But I think Canada will kind of have that beginner's luck, as in they really believe in themselves, which is great. And unlike Belgium, they don't just expect it to be a walkover. They'll really want to win and go all out. And at the end of the day, it's just the 3 games you play. You just have to get as many points as you can in those 3 games, and anything can happen. So I do think Canada would end up second, and Croatia would just draw points and end up third.
So Jasper's got a little Canadian in him. He comes on the channel. He's super, super polite. Well, extra. I was like, Canada could get in there. No. I mean, it's gonna be wild. I really don't know what to expect from this Canadian side. We've seen some CONCACAF nations in the past go and do incredible things. Not saying that Canada is gonna go on and win it, but you never know. There's an opportunity they could get out of the group. Croatia is gonna be dangerous. Belgium's gonna be dangerous. It's gonna be very interesting. But it's 3 games, and for anyone out there who might be watching this, being like, these guys are crazy. Even Jasper, who's going for Canada. Remember the group with Costa Rica in it back in the World Cup. England and Italy crashed out. Uruguay finished second, and Costa Rica topped that group. So I'm not saying that's going to be Canada. I'm very open about them probably finishing. I mean, they could finish anywhere, really. But that's the beauty of the World Cup. You don't know what's going to happen. Teams crash it all the time. There's the World Cup winner's curse. So we'll have to see if France is going to follow suit and crash in the group stage. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give my predictions because I've done that a bunch of times, and I'm just going to let you take the heat on this one, Jasper. So that is it, my man. I appreciate you coming on the channel. Your insight was awesome, and I'm very curious to see where this matchup's going to go. I'm hoping to maybe get you back on closer to it if you're okay with that. So in the comments, guys, let me know if you think Jasper might be a little Canadian. Let me know if you guys think that who's going to win between the two of us, and let me know what you guys think that this group is going to play out. Who's going to go through? Who's going to crash out? And yeah, any last words, Jasper?
Well, I'm looking forward to the games. I really find it a shame that it's still so far away and that it's not just in the summer, but I'm really excited about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. World Cups, it's going to be very different. I mean, 1, Canada's in it, and 2 is being played in November, but I'm really excited for it. We'll get Jasper back on. We'll link his Twitter as well, because that's the best way to find him in the description as well if you want to check him out there. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers, friends.
Bye.